Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are looking at the Rover L322. The issue that we have with this vehicle is a little bit of a height difference between the suspension from left to right. So if you're looking at the passenger side of the right side here versus the left side, you can completely see the difference is about an inch. Sometimes it's 3/4 of an inch, but at this time it's sitting at an inch. If I just take a measurement with a tape measure from the center of the hub to the line of the fender, or the edge of the fender, like I said, it's about an inch difference. So without even doing anything, I was looking underneath. Right, and here is our ride height sensor. You can see where I've so that rod that connects the control arm to the sensor itself, in my case, was broken. So while I had the new one on order, I kind of just temporarily glued and put a piece of tape over it, aluminum tape. That's been holding, but I have the new one here, so I'm going to show you how to change that. Here I have the new level sensor. Comes with the rod, even comes with a bracket that holds the sensor onto the frame, and the screws that hold the sensors to this bracket. They're fairly easy to change. It looks a little bit different than what's on there, being that it's aftermarket. We just want to make sure all the pins are there and that plug is going to fit. Have the vehicle in off-road mode with the hood or the bonnet open. That locks the suspension in that position. I also have the steering wheel cut all the way to the left, so that will give us the access. So here was my issue. Like I said, I just had a piece of tape holding it until I had the new part. This is where it had broken. So we'll be removing this. What you're going to need is a 10mm wrench on this side, which will remove the rod. And there's a nut on the opposite side here, which is also a 10mm. So we'll hold this rod from spinning with a wrench and remove the 10mm nut on the other side. And as far as the sensor itself, which sits here on the frame, there's two 8mm bolts. There's one here, there's one here, and also there's this electric plug that'll need to be removed. So we'll get that removed and get this sensor completely removed from the vehicle. Here we have our new sensor versus the old. They do appear a little bit different as far as the sensor itself, but the plug is the same. There's 3 wires that are in the plug going into the sensor on the original. Of course, the original has a lot more pins, but I don't think they're all used depending on which position that sensor is put in. Now the aftermarket one only has 3 pins in it, but like I said, the plug that plugs into this only has 3 wires anyway, so it should work. Now your bracket that mounts it to the frame does come with the new sensor, but it's usually separate. So put that on. It comes with the screws, so put that on in the same orientation your original one was, so you don't have to reuse your old bracket. Now I have everything set up. Again, the rod on this one was broke. That's my main reason of changing this. I didn't have any lights, any suspension faults or anything that it was giving me, but I did notice a difference in height from left to right. I happened to look, and this was broken. Sensor installed, as you can see. There's just 2 bolts. We got those tightened up, 2 8mm. So our ride height sensor here, again, being a little different than what the original was, but it should be okay. It still sits at the correct position that it should sit. But don't forget to tighten up the 10mm bolt on the other side here, or the nut, and hold in this side of it with a 10mm wrench and a socket on the other side. So one thing here, when mounting the actual bracket to the frame, I do want to mention my original screws, when I did put them back in, they were kind of free spinning. They weren't fully tightening up. So I ended up using a bigger screw here. It's just a sheet metal screw, and they're going into the frame here, the tubular frame. They're not threaded or anything like that. It's just a hole, and your sheet metal screw goes through that. Now, sometimes when you pull the old one out, when you go back in, it's just going to free spin and not tighten up. One of them was okay on me. The other one was just not tightening up. So like I said, I just put a bigger screw in it, and now it's held firmly in place. Bracket and the screws, a little coat of undercoating just to keep it from rusting for a while. Now, another thing to keep in mind, this lever from the sensor needs to be pointed out. That's how I have always seen them. So away from the center line of the vehicle, that's how all the other sides are. And again, this will swing both ways. You want to keep it towards the wheel, away from the center line of the vehicle, and that's how it connects perfectly straight to the control arm. We'll take it for a test drive. I ran it through the off-road or the access mode and the off-road mode through both cycles. Now the vehicle seems to be sitting perfectly leveled, so that's what it was. It was that sensor. Must have been a dead spot or whatever in it. Now the vehicle sits perfectly centered, the way it should be. There's no faults on the system, nothing. That did the trick. But I will still be going through the system with the scanner and making sure there's no codes and make sure to recalibrate the suspension. So I will be doing that, but changing this sensor, it was simple enough. It did take care of all the issues on both sides for me. Now it sits perfectly leveled. I thank you for watching.